What world of business and the story of Icarus has in common is how both the title character and the nature of business both most likely or will always fail. See, here's how most businesses work, especially how startups work. Just like Icarus, you're going to get all these wax wings and you're going to think you're strong, then you're going to fly too close to the sun, and before you know it, you're not going to get it back up again. You're going to be dead, completely dead. And now, we're also going to have Icaruses who are dead, just like the guy in the story. We're also going to have a lazy Icarus, where in which the only people giving him wings are the angel investors that actually only want to be there during the launch and are become the people that these businesses actually end up relying on in the first place. We're going to be the only realistic team in this debate, telling you from the start, telling you that business is a hard world and you cannot just keep on relying on people like angel investors, especially how it's becoming already a rising trend in such a treacherous world, right? So before I go to that, I'll tell you basically how my speech is going to go. I'm going to give very important characterizations. Then I'm going to give you my one argument. But my one argument has 4 layers to it. That's going to be, at least 7 minutes. So, okay. So let's make some things clear in characterization. First of all, when we talk about angel investors are generally benevolent and successful businesses and companies that assist startup businesses, but mostly or even only during the launch period. They can give money to the startup businesses. They can assist in any way that it needs assisting, but only during launch. And aside from that, it only gives enough capital for that business or startup to operate during the infant stages only. So it's not giving you more money for you to last the entire business period, but it's giving you enough money for you to stay afloat during the period. That was already info slides. I'm not going to spend time there. Startup business is a business made by mostly people who just came out of school, or at least that's how we're going to characterize it in this debate. Startup businesses are made by people who just left college or even still studying in college, and they think they have this great, bright idea that they think is the future of business, and they're going to put it out there. But a proven statistic, which I'm going to elaborate a lot more later, is how 9 out of 10 startup businesses actually fail. And the reason of that is because 1, there's a general lack of experience. I will also explain it later. 2, aside from that, there is a highly competitive market. What do I mean by that? You may have a good idea, but your opponents, especially in a world like business, can easily steal your idea, and the competition will become a matter of manufacturing. And at the end of the day, a higher company will always win because they have more resources than you. Especially, that's the reason why it is a specifically treacherous world. So basically, there are some characteristics I want to show you what will happen when there are angel investors involved, specifically in status quo. 1, in general, these startups will, in our characterization, will both have angel investors, but also have startup loans, which can hurt them a lot in the long run. I'll explain that more later. Number 2, society is already plagued by myths and success stories of business, and because that's all they see in the media and advertisements, everybody will think that with enough hard work and dedication, they're going to make it in business, even though that may or may not be the case. And 3, startups are easily accessible. The fact that these kinds of businesses are so easy that they can already be made by people who just came out of college or who are even still in college makes it capable to be done by everyone in the first place. And the fact that these people who are angel investors are not even selective about the ideas that they throw a bone to. In fact, they just want to have as much fingers and as many pies as possible. They just want to participate in all these businesses as much as possible. No. So I'm going to have, this is a pretty long speech, I'm not going to take any of your points. So, okay, my first argument, my only argument is going to be how these startup businesses are always going to be likely to fail. And the thing is, just like Icarus, when they fail, the damage is always going to be super, super bad and even lasting. Okay, 1, a lot of people, my first layer is how a lot of people make startups in the first place. Yeah, we told you already in our start, how when you have startups, when you make startup businesses, it's so easy that even people who just came out of college can already do it. But my first layer under that is that people join. The reason why there's so many people who do startup businesses is because it's easy. Because people like angel investors make that kind of business easy. because they already give enough operational funds, enough operational resources to start with. And because aside from that, additionally, they're not even selective, like I already said during my characterizations. So because of that, there's an illusion that the angel investors will make your life easy. But in fact, business is really the bliss of this world where you probably fail. But okay, you know what, you're bugging me, sure, go ahead.
If you think that the narrative for you to start your own businesses are so large, then why do you think that if we don't give people the money, that they won't just take it out from banks to make sure that then they can start the businesses like you say that they really want?
Okay, I'm going to keep going the arguments. I'll probably explain that later. Okay, so aside from that, there's already a myth of success that I already told you, because advertisements only show success stories in the media. They don't show stories of failures, because the failures behind businesses do not encourage people to enter business. But these angel investors and bankers want these people to enter business because, like I said, they want to put their money as much as possible. But because of this, the costs, or because of the stories of success, even though they could be mythified, these costs of having success in business are usually oversimplified because they don't scare people to not do this business. So, because of that, one, a lot of people want to go in because they want instant success, because they think startups are fast, it's a fast business. And number two, they can opt in because the angel investors already give them a startup fund, which is basically a big bear trap in the long run. But I'm going to explain more in my other layers. Second layer, startups are likely to fail. Aside from the 9 over 10 is likely to fail statistic, already the angel investors are very selective, and startups still fail for numerous reasons, such as companies don't have that much promising potential to begin with. The fact that it's so easy already tells you that anybody can do it, and if anybody is willing to innovate it so hard, they've probably done it already. Because startups can be made by anybody. It's not like a magical innovative company where nobody can do it. And aside from that, even though they have potential, they lack experience. These people have never even experienced having a constant income in the first place, other than odd jobs meant to survive their tuition. And aside from that, there's already a crude competition in the market, like I said already in my characterizations. And there's already an idea of an elastic market. If your product has a demand today, there's no assurance it's going to have the same demand tomorrow. It could be gone, which is especially detrimental to these startup businesses. Third standard in this argument, there is a failure, and failure equals hard circumstance. Because of the reliance on angel investors, there's going to be even more need to get loans, and loans will always be put to debt. And because of this debt, people will waste time trying to succeed in business without even having a constant income. And this failure is already seen as a judgment by society, because their history of failure, they're not likely to even be ready to have a new business. Nobody will invest in them. And because aside from this harm, they'll take odd jobs just to pay for that debt. And aside from that debt, there's no job and no one will believe in them. And that's when you will succeed in other people. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. I invite the leader of the opposition.
Here, Mayor.
Hi, Bob.
There's so much to concede from government side that I don't know where to start. Because inherently, they seem to characterize these type of things as, for example, a tree that's an angel investor where you just get money when you feel like, we tell you that it's not as easy as you think. We tell you that the only way that you're going to get any sort of angel investors are people who actually like your product and see potential in it, see the worth and giving you out money, right? And what is so important about that POI that he said he was going to explain but didn't, right? First of all, that inherently hurt me simply because he lied to us, right? But rather, what else is so harmful? Right? It was extremely important to characterize how exactly these businesses are going to start at the end of the day, simply because we tell you that the alternative to starting a business with angel investors is starting a business through getting out loans. And I'm going to tell you how that's extremely harmful, but sure.
They even ban startup loans with Mr. Leader about this.
I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay. But if you're willing to go to the extent of banning startup loans, we tell you that it's incredibly harmful. Because they're arguing not necessarily against angel investors, but they simply tell us that starting businesses in general is incredibly harmful. So what kind of world do they then support? They support a world where no new types of innovations can ever pop up at any sort and at any time within the economy. They support a world where there's no types of competition whatsoever. That means to say that the world that they're supporting simply just tells us that no, nobody start any new businesses. We're perfectly okay with the world that we live in right now, and we tell you that that's the kind of world that there's no types of improvement. How will we ever get flying cars on this? right? But moreover, we tell you that to summarize their case, if you're simply telling us that startup businesses are bad because they're likely to fail, then we tell you that's not something that we see that there's a value in at the end of the day. First argument, we tell you that you limit the propensity for small businesses to flourish, and we're going to ground you the extremely large benefit of startup businesses later. Because first of all, let's characterize and let's make a comparative. Because we could see the characterization that we got from Jim when he told us that there's a large societal narrative about how easy it is and how much people want to start startup businesses. That means to say that a lot of times they're going to do this regardless, because these people don't necessarily think that they're going to fail. They think that their idea is amazing and therefore it's going to succeed on either side. So what exactly does that mean? But first of all, let's talk about the comparative. Because we tell you that angel investors are more likely to invest than banks. We tell you, let's look at the comparative. Because what exactly do you look for in a bank, right? Because in banks, you necessarily look for how likely is this person to pay you back. And angel investors look for the quality of ideas, right? Let's talk about how incredibly helpful that is based on comparative. Because if you're going to look at credit, you don't necessarily look at the type of idea or the type of potential that these businesses normally have. You're not going to invest simply because you have no experience with these types of things whatsoever. That means to say that these new markets will never come out at the end of the day. And plain and simply, angel investors are more likely to invest simply because they were willing to lose this to begin with. But let's talk about the second level, how you lessen the risk towards starting a business from the very get-go. Because that's so important in today's debate. If they tell us that starting businesses are likely to fail, then we tell you that you need to mitigate the harms of the failure, right? So we tell you, how does this happen? Because the comparative still exists, right? You're going to get from a bank that charges high amounts of interest and something that you're forced to pay back with the capital that you earn, right? Versus angel investors that give you money for a shared benefit and a shared risk. That means to say that these angel investors are not going to charge you for the money that they invest within these types of things. However, if your businesses fail and you see that it's likely that they are going to fail, what's going to happen is these people are going to have to pay the exorbitant amount of money that they use as startup capital with interest. That means to say that these people are likely going to damage this individual because of their lower propensity to actually do these things. But thirdly, let's talk about insurance premiums. Because insurance, in and of itself, within these small businesses, is something that you're not likely to get as a startup business, simply because they can't ensure that this business truly is going to flourish. That means to say that the risk is triple, because then you're going to need to pay back the loans that you got, and you're not even going to get any type of help from insurance. But let's blow up the benefit of what these small startup businesses do. And I'm going to differentiate, and I'm going to create an entirely new argument later about how new markets and innovation are likely to thrive when you have small startup businesses. First of all, let's talk about the idea of competition and how goods are interconnected. That means to say that any type of business that you create creates a high influx of money and profit for other related goods. That means that this is the concept of complements, right? If your startup, it was to say that you're selling a new type of coffee, then the complements around that type of products are likely to flourish as well. That means to say that if you're selling coffee, things like creamer, sugar, and other types of industries like that are likely to flourish once you flourish as well. Even if you're a small business and you don't flourish, at the very least, there's a complement and other people find a necessity for other types of business. Let's talk about competition and how when there are smaller businesses, these businesses can therefore start forcing other corporations and start forcing their peers, start actually increasing their propensity to make high quality products at a cheaper price so that people actually go to their corporations. That means to say you're going to have benefits and profits towards other complements, and you're going to force these corporations to actually compete and have them drive these prices higher, drive the prices lower, and make the quality better. That means to say the conclusion is simple. You're going to get complements, and you're going to make sure that these products are cheaper and more better at the end of the day. But second, let's talk about how this rising trend entails a rising trend of newer markets, right? Okay, because banks aren't likely to invest in newer markets, and these angel investors are. Why? Let's look at the example of Apple and Microsoft. It's simply because the banks weren't willing to invest in something that they couldn't tangibly see and they couldn't fully understand. There were no banks that were willing to actually grant loans to Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. That's where Steve Jobs' magic truly arrives, when he was forced to call a group of angel investors to actually step up their game and actually force that new market to be created. Okay, let's talk about how extremely important that is at the end of the day. When you have these new markets, which banks are not likely to even invest in, that's where you get an incentive to actually innovate. When you can, when you know that when you come up with a new product and a way to make these products cheaper, and somebody's going to start it out for you, you then have the ability to actually put this product out of the market, and let's assume that 9 out of 10 of them fail. If at least one of those are extremely beneficial to society, that's something that we see as a benefit. These are things like, for example, cures to diseases, things like, for example, new forms of technology, and that's a benefit in and of itself. Opposition takes this debate because we've told you that smaller businesses are the only way that you can progress as society and carry out oppose.
Wow.
Thank you for that speech. I invite the Deputy Prime Minister.
They're yet to even clash with us, so let me make it abundantly clear so Quentin has an easier time. We are against startup loans, we are against angel investors, and in fact, what we believe should happen on our side is individuals get a stable job first, accumulate the capital they need, then make a business afterwards. Quentin, please respond to that. Now let's move on to some levels of responses against our whole case, which quite frankly makes very little sense. The first thing you notice in a point when Quentin stood up is this: startup loans and angel investors have equal harm in affecting the narrative in society today. But first of all, you need to understand this, Madam Speaker. You still have to pay back the loans afterwards versus angel investors where you don't have to pay them back afterwards. What does this mean, right? The influence angel investors has on the narrative that it's easy, and the influence it has on the company is greater, propelling the harm even further, the harm they themselves were trying to mitigate out of order. So then they look at this. We're against young they look at this. They want to help people, but it's way down, Madam Speaker. In their side, they even consider the harms that exist when you have startup loans, Madam Speaker, coming from this member. But they never engaged in our principle, which is abundantly clear from Jimbo and something I'm reiterating now. We rather have individuals get stable jobs first, please sit down, and then they use the capital from that to make businesses afterwards. That's when we mitigate the harms mentioned by my first speaker, such as them not having any experience in the workplace, what so and what not. That's when you actually mitigate the harms in the longest run, when you give them experience first. What more did they tell you in his speech? They told you that smaller corporations will create competition. Never mind that he never knew what smaller corporations are. Madam Speaker, competition will not happen because of a performance gap. The smaller companies will have no ability to compete with the bigger companies. So just because there's a company that exists doesn't mean competition is gonna improve right away. The smaller companies will just fail and the bigger companies will agree, okay, we don't have to improve anyways. So in fact, smaller companies don't accrue the benefit they want. Next thing they told you is this: there's only an incentive to innovate when you have these startups and angel investors. Madam Speaker, we never said there won't be any companies in our side in the long run. We never said there won't be anyone doing this, but rather the great narrative that you can do this and that it's easy. That's what we're trying to fight against, and that's something worth regretting. Not to mention, at the end of the day, businesses aren't even the one to go to and do things for achievement. You can always become a doctor and what thing, what not. And we see getting stable jobs and experience is always the value to fight for in the longest run. Please sit down. They completely dismiss my partner's argumentation when I told you that these companies there's a current narrative society that's propelled by angel investors and their side. Angel investors are making it seem that it's very palatable to become a business entrepreneur, when in reality, it's not. And this is when the harms accrue, right? On the local individual level, there's no response from them. We told you that these individuals are fresh out of college, or most often than not, are still in college. That means they don't have any information about how employees work. They don't have any information about the outside world. Rather, they just either got invested from an angel investor and made a loan. When we sit down, and you need to understand that regardless of the quality of your company, simply because of the elasticity of the market, your company is very likely to fail. And when it does, the harm is great on our side. What are the harms again from my first speaker? They told you that when they fail, you is less likely to be able to repair the damage done to you. Secondly, there's a stigma against the people already on the ground. And thirdly, they told you that it's less likely to pay the debt at the anyways, which will clog the banks in the longest run. There's never any principal response coming from them in the longest run. So they can't take space. But before I move on to my 2 extensions, sure thing.
Can you really tell us that startups can be able to work basic jobs until they have enough to start a business? Because this requires massive amounts of capital that normal individuals won't be able to get in their entire life.
Yes, we think they should. And we think that this is even better because they have experience. Because we need to understand, you don't need to be young to make a business, Madam Speaker. We're okay with it taking time because it definitely mitigates the harms that they want. You don't necessarily have to be a young 32 Steve Jobs to make a business, but we are willing to wait if it means not harming society. Let's move on to the more tangible harms that they'll need to respond to. First of all, it glamorizes it. First argument and first extension. How it glamorizes entrepreneurship. First of all, this. The narrative of angel investors coming up always leads to this kind of narrative that anyone can just can become an entrepreneur. Then angel investors will have you back anyways. What does this mean here? That means that people are more likely to just opt in randomly, or people are more likely to opt in without even considering the consequences. They will always set the narrative that people will be there to bail them out in the long run. Being very short-sighted, it's unlikely for them to be able to even accrue. It's unlikely for them to even want to get the benefits. We need to understand as well, Madam Speaker, when these people do get investment from angel investors, they're also likely to get startup loans first because that's when they get noticed by angel investors in the long run. So what does this mean, right? These still have to get startup loans and they're likely to fail. What is the biggest harm when companies are likely, or when there's an abundance of companies failing in the ground in the long run? First of all, this clogs the market and it slows down economic productivity in the longest run. How does this work? Madam Speaker, all companies loan from banks to a certain extent. But when everyone loans from the bank and the debts continue to accrue and the bank is unable to get anyone to pay back those loans, that's when the economy slows down. That's when investment slows down because other countries see that no, the banks are moving very slow in this country, so there's no reason for me to mobilize my resources there. That's when you're less likely to get even companies to be beneficial holistically because startups are damaging the narrative in the longest run. We see places that it's less likely for that to happen when you tell people that this is a dangerous world, this is a cruel world. And in fact, it's better that you get a job first, you get experience first, you get capital first, and only when you have enough capital to make a business and you have enough experience to monitor your own ideas as to how employees work or how resources work, then we think it's better for you to be able to make a startup then. But let's move on to my second extension about actuality. Inherent angel investors, an autonomy of a corporation is compromised in the longest run. What do I mean by this, Madam Speaker? First of all, in contrast to banks, when an angel investor invests in your company, you will always feel indebted to them because of that severe act of benevolence made for you. What does this mean, right? That means you're less likely, that means your ideas are more likely to conflict with theirs, especially since my partner already characterized that these angel investors already have an agenda of their own. They sit down, already took a point. What does this mean then, right? That means they're more likely to compromise their ideas. Because you need to understand the standard of any business is this. Any business is a man's dream aimed to propel forward. And any business's nightmare is to not be able to achieve that dream and not be able to accrue those resources. And that's a principle lost in inherency. When these angel investors invest in you, they're more also likely to get stocks in you. That means they're still going to be there with you at the end of the day. And you feeling indebted to them in the longest run will compromise your idea to have control over your company. It will conflict with your ideas to be able to propel your ideas in the long run. And we see this is something that's inherently harmful to the individuals who want to make companies in the first place, that want to make their own startups and want to propel their ideas forward because it compromises their ability to think, it compromises their ability to make decisions for the company. That means it's less likely for them to be able to maneuver their ideas to what they were actually aiming for at the beginning. In fact, it allows angel investors who might be progressive to even propagate their further ideas forward, maybe creating possible monopolies in the longest run. So we see it's very simple coming from a primitive in the longest run. Why we are able to win this today. We tackled you on the individual level. We told you why exactly startups, loans, and in general is inherently harmful in all of its extents. And we told you how the market clogs when you always allow these individuals to be banking on the banks. And we told you how exactly this actually creates, and even if it does succeed in the long run, and even if there are no harms that exist or accrue, at the end of the day, these angel corporations damage the ability of corporations to function. And for all those reasons, we're very proud of it.
Thank you very much for that debate. I invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Coming from opposition side, we're not going to contest the fact that there are huge amounts of narratives that actually pressure you to become and create your own startups. But we tell you that just removing these angel investors is not enough to actually destroy this narrative to begin with. Saying that, I have 5 levels of responses. First of all, we tell you that removing these angel investors and trying to actually regret these loans to begin with for startups isn't actually going to stop this rising trend about how society wants you to actually found startups because it's something that we see as ideal. We tell you that the reason why these things are so common and prevalent within the society is not because it's actually very easy to accumulate capital with these actual business ventures, but actually because we idealize the people who are successful when actually creating these businesses, right? We tell you we do it not because we know it's profitable, but because we see people like Steve Jobs and like Bill Gates who are able to create such successful businesses out of their backyard with very limited support from the bank to actually become billionaires and like very successful and one of the greatest people in their own right. So we tell you on this agenda that this like case line that they're saying that removing and regretting these things would be beneficial in removing this narrative isn't going to create anything. And that being said, what we see are the implications of that. First thing, when they told us about, oh, when that happens, we're not actually going to have like these kinds of risky investments. So people are going to try and have a stable job before actually achieving these kinds of businesses to begin with. So we can have better startups. Isn't going to happen to begin with because even though they don't have the capital, they're still going to try and start one. But assuming that their idea about stable jobs works, why do we tell you that that's something that's not reasonable and something that's not going to happen? First of all, we tell you that there's going to be no incentive for you to actually start your own business when you're already financially stable and financially capable. We tell you that the nuance, the reason why it's okay for you to have a startup right after college is because you don't have a lot to lose. You don't have people depending on your actual interest aside from just yourself, right? We tell you that if you already are a doctor and you've already been doctoring for like 5 years and you have a family, you're not going to start up that business to begin with because you feel like if this business fails, you're never going to achieve that, meaning that there's going to be a complete isolation of these businesses to begin with. But secondly, we tell you that startups aren't ever going to be as nuanced as that ever. Why? Because we tell you that if you want to start a bakery, you're going to need the assets and the funds to start that bakery on your model. Meaning that you're going to need to do something profitable, like a doctor or something that's not related to your passion or the thing that you want to pursue. Meaning that you're never going to gain the experience on our side, on your side, that you actually want to create and you actually want to do. Second level of response. They told us about the performance gap, about how there's never going to be like small startup companies are never going to be able to compete with these bigger corporations at the end of the day. We tell you that we're not just talking about one small tech company versus Apple or one small bakery versus like a big company. We're telling you we're talking about huge amounts of small developments that all like holistically compete with the prices of other big firms because of their specializations, because of scale that they already developed. So we see that this ideal falls. Then third level of response. They talked about debt, right? They said that there's going to be huge amounts of debt when you actually like start a business, and this is something that they necessarily regret. What do we tell you is actually, why do we tell you it's actually better on our side? We tell you that when an angel investor invests, he's obliged to buy a certain amount of shares in your company, meaning that he has a certain amount of stocks and a certain amount of debt liability, like economic liability if your company goes down. Meaning that if your company fails and you do actually have to pay back these debts, at least the angel investor will be obliged to start paying paying a certain percentage of this thing to begin with. The fifth level of response. When they told us this idea about how you're actually going to have huge amounts of conflict with your angel investor because you have like an indebtedness to him, therefore he's going to try to push his own agenda towards you. First of all, we tell you that his agenda was something where he tried to see a business that he saw was good and therefore wanted it to succeed. Therefore, he's typically he or she is typically a subscriber of the business model that you're already trying to forward, meaning that you have a similar set of interests between you and the angel investor, meaning that's a very unlikely thing to happen. But secondly, we tell you that angel investors don't buy your entire company, right? They only buy a certain percent. So if you really feel like this person is actually conflicted to your actual dream, then that's not something that you're going to deal with. You're going to push that person away, even if that means less donations. But to be like inclusive, I'm going to jump into their frame, and even assuming that all their arguments are true, there's still a certain actor that you're discriminating that's still going to be bad. What is that actor? We tell you that actor is the poor and the people who actually have passions in starting businesses, but simply can't because they can never achieve the financial independence that you're talking about on the government side. Why? Because we tell you that these people have very hereditary kinds of jobs, right? If your father was a carpenter, you're probably going to be a carpenter because you live paycheck to paycheck and you don't have the capability to pay for huge amounts of education, which means you only have to look upon your own subsistence and you can't quite actually achieve your dreams which you want to achieve but don't have the financial capability to.
Sure. All your arguments are grounded under the fact that the likelihood of a business succeeding is high. What will happen to the poor individual who has no income but he's in millions of debt in your side?
I already responded to that, saying that if you start, you are always going to start this business to begin with because of the huge, overwhelming narrative that it creates. The question of this debate is where do we actually make sure that risk is mitigated between both sides? And we tell you it was on our side, where at least the angel investor takes some of the risk, then in your side, when if they really want to do it, they're going to be forced to take all of the risk and all of the loss when this happens. Back to the argument. So since you're looking upon your own success and they don't have the capability to achieve the dream, we tell you that you're fundamentally oppressed, right? Because you haven't achieved the things that you actually want to do. Therefore, you live a very mundane life, doing the same thing that your father, your grandfather did, and it's the same thing every day until you die. We tell you that this is something that we necessarily regret. Because we tell you that that's like the society in general, we see a value to people actually trying to achieve their dreams, achieve the things that they want to achieve, and to see what their ideal self in the future. We tell you that angel investors are fundamentally necessary in this kind of aspect in society, where they actually have to help these people and actors in society achieve this kind of financial independence so they can at least start up their own companies. Even if we say these companies fail, we still tell you that this is a step closer in actually trying to achieve their dreams, or actually trying to achieve the kind of betterment that they want to see at the end of the day. So conclusion of this argument is simple. Without these angels investors and ways to gain capital, without things like credit, or without things like the thing that you gave just in case you're the bank for without proper mortgages, the only way to get this capital to begin with is with people who are willing to trust not in your financial capability, but rather in the idea itself. And we believe that for the people who are like extremely unexperienced and the poor, the only way that they can sell that is to people who are willing to do something like angel investors. Okay, so what's the conclusion of the two constructive speakers coming from opposition side? The conclusion of the opposition side is simple. First of all, you're never gonna actually stop new businesses from being created. What we want to do as opposition is simple. We want to make sure that we can maximize the capability of success of these businesses, and number two, mitigate the risk of failure, and making sure that it's open to we lower the boundaries to all people to make sure that they can achieve the kinds of dreams and goals that they want at the end of the day. So that is that I'm proud.
Thank you for that speech. I invite the government.
Let's clear out this debate under three simple issues. The first, a very simple clarification. This is the main thing that was dealt between and the greatest disagreement is that will this certain kind of drawing or the regret of this kind of angel investors going to stop the resurgence of startup, right? So ultimately, this is what we think, and this is the thing that they never engage on. Given that we're under a society that there's a huge narrative of success, ultimately, if people think that they have a greater access towards ability to set up a startup, they are going to do it. And we think angel investors to a great extent made the access towards starting a startup a lot easier, because people will not have to loan a lot anymore, and then because there's a lot of risk, like a lot of lesser risk compared to startup loans, we simply go with an angel investor. So we think angel investors do contribute to the resurgence of a lot of startups and the popularity of a lot of startups. So we think if ever there's no angel investor, the likelihood is, on our side, there'll be less people starting up when they're right after college, or less people starting up when they have no experience at all, because it's no longer as easy for you to start up a company. That will make it very clear. So we think when it comes to quantity, there will be less people who are going to go into the startup business unprepared and whatnot, right? The comparative growth that we throw is very clear. We think we want individual friends who has a stable job first. They work in a corporation, for instance, for maybe a few years, for instance. We'll get to know the connection, or get to know how corporation works, get to know more people within the corporation, and therefore utilize those kind of experiences and more of the capital you accumulated from those experiences to start up a company. We think their aspiration to start a company will still be there, but except when they start a company on our side, to be more prepared and whatnot. And that's the reason why we think on our side we have a greater likelihood of success, because they have more experience, but moreover than that, we think even if they fail, because they have their own capital already, their ability to absorb the kind of failure will also be higher. So given those experiences, we think that's the part we're standing with coming into this debate. So first issue, I'm dealing with the idea, is failing something that's bad. Please sit down. Because even though they said we're going to mitigate the risk of failing, but ultimately, the likelihood of failing still exists, and that's something they still have to concede to, right? They told us, yes, failing do exist. But here's the thing we have to point out, what's the great extent of the harm of this kind of failures, right? The harm exists in several manners, because we don't agree with what they said. The young individual have a lot to lose, therefore they can afford failure. Because I want you to imagine a world, you owe into a business, you fail, and then you go back here and try to apply for other kind of job. Number one, you have no experience in those jobs that you're applying to. What does that mean? It means comparatively, comparing you and another college graduate who's applying for a job, they're more likely to pick the younger college graduate. You spend like maybe 5 years, 6 years of your life working in a failed corporation. So in the first place, we think there's younger graduates have more potential. So you're not going to be prioritized in all the jobs you're going to get. More than that, when the idea that you failed is already an indication that you are an unsuccessful person. And a lot of society uses it against you. The corporations are less likely to hire you because you failed as a corporation. But more than that, if you want to start a business again, guess what? No one will loan you any money. No one will invest in you in any kind of way because of your precedence of success. That's why even if when they're eventually, let's say they get a job, and eventually they're ready already, they have the experience they need, they have the money they need to start a business, the likelihood to succeed then in the business world, even when they're prepared, on your side will be low because you have precedence of failure. That's why failing is extremely bad, because those are irreparable damages that's inflicted to the individual. And the extent of that harm is not only to the individual, it's third-party harm. Like what? Like, for example, the employees of your startup company not being able to get paid, for instance, or the family that you have not being able to be fed, for instance. So all those circumstances that we implicit down, that you have a lot of debts and not being able to really fight for a job after your failure, which may force you, for example, into a cycle of wasting your life, for instance. Or in the worst case scenario, given that you don't have a job, given that you're in a lot of debt, you may even need to resort to extreme circumstances, crime, for instance, and other kind of things. So those kind of harms ultimately cause you third-party harm to your family, to your employees, but even to society, that you might resort to certain kind of life of crime and other kind of things. So we think failing is bad. So as much as possible, we to mitigate failures. The only way to mitigate failures if you destroy the myth, destroy the ability of people to buy into the myth of success, to go in business unprepared and whatnot. So the reason, basically, the conclusion of this first issue is failing is something that's bad. And only when you're able to do those kind of things, such as like removing angel investment, is when you can mitigate those kind of failure and make society less for failure. And that's why really people on our side will ultimately be better. Why? Because on our side, people are less likely to be in that kind of situation. You cannot find a job because you're too old, because you spend your life mostly in those kind of failures. Just sit down. But more than that, we think the idea of like start a business, in which here we're already like a version of success. Because we think, ultimately, we're okay to start a business. We want new ideas. But we think the idea, those ideas can still come out from our side. Maybe it'll come a bit later. But we think when they come a bit later, they have a great likelihood of success. But more than that, this is a very clear part that we have to argue, right? On their side, some startup might succeed. But what's the quality of success? We think on their side, when they succeed, most next versions of success are not something to be credited to them. It's like even Steve Jobs in general was ousted from Apple in later years by the investor that invested in him because they think that Steve Jobs is no longer good, for instance, in whatnot. That's what was going to happen. Because when you have investors you feel indebted to, they can have the ability, number one, to force their agenda upon you because of indebtedness. That means, for example, when in Big Bang Theory, when they made a gyroscope for all the kind of purpose, for scientific purpose, when they have an investor coming in, they're able to manipulate through their head and make them do it into military kind of purposes. What does that mean? It means when an investor is where depending on your autonomy to run your company gets removed. And when the autonomy gets removed, there are two levels of harms. Number one, this individual who you want to give success to can never claim the success on their hands. They can never develop this company in the way they want to develop it. But moreover than that, it ultimately disrupts the whole thing it told us that you want startup to succeed and succeed. We think their likelihood of success then is not only more granted in their hand, but granted in the hand of their bigger investors who's going to rip their success out of their hands and give them no justice. We don't want that kind of success. We think that their success doesn't pay retribution for hard work done by the owner, for instance, and what's so and what not. So we don't think that kind of success is something that's going to be beneficial and even more something that's commensurate. But lastly, and this is the biggest part of this video, was an engagement by their side, is the idea of society. We told you in my second figure argument, is the idea of glamorization of entrepreneurship. The harm of this is coming with glamorization and with entrepreneurship. People always see businessmen as the most important job, as the best job in the world. What's going to happen is that there's individuals who are not going to opt into other equally important jobs. So for example, teaching, for instance. So for example, being a scientist, for instance, and other kind of professional career. But instead, they all want the business because it's so easy, because it's so good. Those kind of things, they lessens the ability for society to diversify their ability to create other jobs. To lessens their society to have different kind of job that caters to different kind of scenario. The moment that is compromised, where society is only filled with businessmen, the society can progress in any way. We have a diversified market and can only do that when there's a removal of the glamorization of their business in the form of angel investment. We think it will stay.
Thank you very much for that speech. I invite the opposition.
the inherent inconsistency coming from government side is what's going to cost them this debate. Because firstly, they said that their lack of experience is going to cost them their failure as a startup company. Yet they argue that these angel investors are actually having experience, are actually going to compromise the ideas of these startup companies. We asked them, what really is their frame, right? Because it is really confusing. Them saying that they have experience and having them being able to influence these startup companies is quite an inconsistency. So let's go then to my issues. First one is that will an easy opt-out actually cause failure? And secondly, is it okay for startup companies to trust in these angel investors? So let's go then to the first issue. On will an easy will an easy opt-in cause failure? Because government has been quite pushy. That firstly, they said that when these fresh out of college students actually have these startup companies, it's because it's easy for them to actually get and launch these startup companies, and eventually they're gonna fail. First response, they never mechanized this. They never said how exactly that this doesn't give them the capability for them to be able to have these, for them to be able to prevent these types of failures. They only said in their policy, coming from their DPM, that they can have jobs, they can have the money, and eventually they can have these types of, they can actually mitigate these failures. But the thing is, then when we weigh both their policies, right, this type of thing about having money is actually like is actually a deadlock. So then we then ask, how then can you ensure that you don't actually fail, or if ever you can mitigate the failures? Then we see that it's perfectly then clear that this type of issue is then explained by their argument that these angel investors can actually like have these experiences to actually cater to how you can mitigate these types of failures. Because you recognize that there is a time gap, right? Then these angel investors, you can actually have this money right now and actually start up your company. Where in their side, they never told us when exactly you can have these types of money that are like costing hundreds of dollars, hundreds and thousands of dollars in the first place. There's a time gap. We're in this type of experience. They said maybe this is something that can actually lead them to having better startup companies that will actually mitigate their failures. Yet they never really told us how this type of experience from them having jobs is actually gonna help them in mitigating the failures. What exactly is inherent upon jobs that will actually make you like have a startup company that is essential, right? That is a burden they've posed upon themselves, and they never characterize, they never explain this. So then we see when we ask how does this strengthen your ability to make a startup company not fail, we see no clear link at all. Secondly, thirdly, we point out that this is very elitist, because we see that a lot of startup companies, such as in Silicon Valley, actually haven't even finished college, right? There's a significant amount of dropout college students that actually start up a company, right? We see here that this tells you that in order for a startup company to be successful, you don't actually need to have that type of experience or that type of essential knowledge, right? Because we see here that in terms of how DLO has actually told you and how passions work, we see here we actually give the opportunity to these people that don't really have the capacity, don't really have the right amounts of money to be able to start up the company. Here we see as well that their mischaracterization is in their ability to put up these companies has entirely been addressed. All in all, we see that it mitigates how these companies fail and how it is not necessary for these companies to actually just fail just because it's easy for them to opt in. We actually said as well that these angel investors also have the capability to choose on whether these projects actually are good ideas and that can actually compete in the market. So, second issue, and is it okay for startups to trust in their angel investors? Because they said that it is compromising the ideas because of indebtedness. But we see that firstly, angel investors want to be able to get a share of the profit of these startup companies, right? In order for them to do this, they need good deals with the startup companies. Startup companies actually are inherently a natural tendency for them is to be able to have a bigger part of their share, right? It is very unlikely for them to say that it is actually going to compromise ideas. Ideas are which angel investors rely upon, and what maybe you would actually want to say is that how angel investors actually take these parts of these companies. But we see secondly on how have you even like heard of contracts, right? Because we see that these money, like hundreds and thousands of dollars or money, doesn't just blow out, like come out of thin air and then give it to the startup company, right? We see that there are contracts that inform the startup companies what essential standards, what essential like things we're gonna do, what things that we're actually gonna be able to post upon you, right? And this we tell you that even if in the worst case they're still informed and they still consented upon this. The important thing is we're able to start a company and launch a company because in principle, we've told you about passions and how you're just stuck to your employment and how you're just stuck to being under like a company, right? When you want to be able to start a startup company and not able to do so, we say that we have the ability for opt-in when you have the availability. And when you have these angel investors, right? When we see the rising trend as well in my last issue on how we're able on the relevance of actually having a lot of startups, right? We see here that this is also important because with the rising trend of markets, for example, we need to be able to ensure that the quality is up par, that competition is actually seen, and when monopoly, for example, is actually not upheld. We also told you about trickle-down effects, which eventually weren't responded by government side. This is why we win this debate.
Thank you for your speech. I invite the opposition to reply.
There's four things that we necessarily talked about this debate. First thing, to what extent does the narrative of startups actually exist? What was the point both conceded by both sides? First of all, we both understood that the startup narrative exceeded to a very great extent, where it forced people to actually create these startups, and whether or not they would fail, this is a global trend and something that's a great precedent within society. The question of this thing then, it goes into extent. To what extent are you willing to have your own startup? Government side says it's to the extent of when you can have capital to actually make that startup. The stance that we've been giving you from opposition was simple. We told you that it's not about if you can get capital or not. It's actually it's actually because of the huge media narrative that it actually creates. Like how Steve Jobs was man of the year, or how these people are treated as heroes with their epsilons of society. Meaning that we treat them as the absolute ideal figure of who we want to be, even if we start from nothing. Meaning that the exchange was simple. Even though their side was talking about their capability, we already told you that capability isn't how you're actually going to achieve this. Meaning that you're going to go to all extents to achieve loans and actually have this kind of capital to do this. The question is whether or not we want these angel investors and these loans to be there to actually support you to mitigate this risk when you actually come in and start up these. But we're going to even engage, even if they told us to some extent it's going to reduce the amount of people going into this. The second two things that we talked about was firstly, how do we maximize the success of these kinds of startups? And secondly, how do we mitigate the risk? The case coming from government side, it's the ideal point when people are already have a job in their 40s, then they can start up, then they can have startup companies, but then they're gonna have to franchise that with all of their own earnings from personal investments and savings from the past 10 years of them working with a professional job. Meaning that then they're taking all the risk without a bank or without these kinds of angel investors, even at their 40s, which means that you lessen the likelihood of people ever opting into these because they're afraid that if they take the risk alone, they're never going to do it, and therefore they put, let's say, their families and their children at risk, losing the amount of people actually trying to get into it. the first place, making it so that it's gonna be like something that's not really present in society for it to be successful. Coming from opposition, we told you it simply. We tell you that you have less to lose when you're a college student, meaning that like you're more willing to take risks because you have multiple years to make it back, meaning that you still have the capability. I mean, you're young. And secondly, we told you that since you have that, you need the capability to fulfill your dreams to the capital that these kinds of loans and these kinds of angel investors give you. And even if you fail, that leads us to the second issue about how we can try and mitigate that failure. The way we tried to mitigate that failure coming from government side was simple. As long as you were like coming from from government side, they just said, well, if you have a job, then you fail in the business, you can just go back to your job. Which is something that they already conceded would use a lot, would make you lose a lot of money. Hey, at least you still have a job. Coming from opposition, we tell you that the best way to mitigate failure isn't just to take the loss and leave and just leave empty-handed. The best way to mitigate failure is actually to distribute risk between the loans and the actual angel investors that invest in your company. So even if your company, let's say, goes bankrupt, you still have these companies are still obliged to pay some of the debt because they had an inherent stake and interest and like stocks within your company, meaning that you never had to withhold it in the first place. So conclusion between these 2 points, we can that less people in their side are actually going to start their companies. And secondly, the people who do it are going to have to do it alone without any financial backing. Then the other side. On our side, we tell you have people who have less to lose, who can invest money, and even if it fails, there's going to be a less amount of loss personally on their side, and people like their families can bail them out. The fourth discussion we had was about how, like, what is the importance of these kinds of like companies to begin with. They said the importance was to make sure that you have, let's say, what you want, like, so that no investor must intervene in what kind of your image is and what kind of idea you have. How did we clash with this? We said that's not necessarily likely because investors actually cater and buy your idea so that they wouldn't actually try and infringe upon. But what did we say? What we said was simple. What we told you is that we're supposed to cater to everybody because these are things that are actually their dreams and the kind of things that they want to fulfill in their life to achieve self-actualization. The only way we can make this accessible to all people, if they really feel like they want to do it, is make sure that they have the capability to achieve capital, to achieve their dreams. So that,
Thank you for that speech. I invite the last speech to the presence of ASDC 2017 in the government.
Two issues that make it very clear government wins this debate. One is a meta discussion about their speakers, why they have failed in this debate, and second about what transpired in the round. First, let's have the meta discussion. This will be very brief. Need to understand Madam Speaker, their LO never clashed with us, and that wires him a great penalty. Secondly, their deputy was a very hypocritical debater, arguing that, oh, we should be able to understand the burden of the people, but he never weighed it down or even put an effort in the speech, comparing where the burden is less. Rather, all he argues that the burden is less on their side, without even putting an ounce of discussion about what's happening in our side. Not to mention that he also conceded that loans are bad, yet the only nuanced benefit he proved in their side, and was the battle carried through it, is that these people were only going to have a less impact. Never mind the fact that they never even realized that not everyone will have access to angel investors in the long run. So their benefit is actually impossible to approve in the long run. Not to mention the opposition whip also argued this. She told you this, that and tried to entirely misrep our case by saying, oh, we argued that these angel investors don't have experience. Madam Speaker, the ones we were saying don't have experience were the ones making the startups in the long run. I don't even know why I have to clarify this. Not to mention in her speech, she even said this, oh, we haven't even proved why it's likely that these startups are going to fail. Madam Speaker, their first speaker conceded that it's going to fail and the likelihood is great. So in not only did we have great substantives as to why it's going to fail, we see that's inherent, that's even as sad against their own speakers arguing that, oh, you have to prove that it's likely to fail. But never minding that all of those meta failures, let's move on to what transpired in the round and what discussions were more important. We need to understand this before I move on to make issues, madam. The discussion about success, fine, we have to concede. If everyone is going to succeed, they win this debate. But you need to understand this, Madam Speaker. They themselves conceded that the likelihood of failure is unbelievably great. So the discussion becomes this. When they do fail, and when a majority of them fail, where is the world better off? Because they can argue that everyone will have an angel investor to back them up. They can argue that everyone will be having a successful company. They can argue that everyone's dreams will be better at the end of the side. We know that there are individuals who aren't as lucky as them. We have to understand there are individuals who will fail. Because there are so many companies that have failed and put them in bad situations. And those are the people we're trying to protect in our side. What did they tell you? Well, first of all, you need to understand that they never had any response to my argument on how the bank loans clog the market in the long run. They never argued about how startups will now be compromised because of the corporate autonomy, because of their indebtedness to angel investors in the long run. They never even get into the idea that failure will happen in their side. All they like to argue is, oh, these companies are going to be working, and when they work, it's going to be good. Fine, they're going to be good, but that's not where the debate lies. very clearly in meta and realistic discussion. We were very clear on our side, the likelihood of you succeeding is greater because you need to understand that capital is not the only judgment of your corporation succeeding. There's also such things as experience. When my partner told me that when you get the job and learn how corporation works, then you get the capital you need. That's when you're likely to work. As compared and vis-a-vis, if you just work coming out of college and you have no experience, you only have capital. Because you need to understand, Madam Speaker, capital is not the only standard of assessing this. What else did we tell you on our side about this issue? We told you that, oh, startups can happen, but what we need to understand is where are there better startups? That's why we want this issue, and that's why we want this debate, right? We told you that the startups, maybe in abundance, they're less. Maybe in abundance, there's not as many people willing to innovate, but those people willing to innovate will provide better startups in the long run. And an abundance of businesses isn't necessarily the value we're trying to fight for in the long run, and I'm sure you agree. Let us move on to the second issue that makes it a very crucified win as to why we're going to be topic in this tournament. Where is the better narrative going to exist in the long run? This is the narrative they fought for, and they also said in the ring. We want everyone to fight for their passions. We want everyone to fight for their dreams. What we told you in our side was simple. We told you that glamorization is something that's inherently harmful, especially in such a volatile market that is businesses. You need to understand that never in their side did they actually even consider the burden that angel investors isn't universal. There will be people who will be feeling the harms. There will be people who will be feeling the bad things. That's why I raised the point. What happens to your poor people that you're trying to protect when they can't accrue the benefits they're trying to fight for? They didn't even argue or even respond to it properly. Rather, what they said is, oh, they will succeed, and that's good. That is clearly not how you win a debate, not especially in the form of extent. But I already told you, when there's glamorization of entrepreneurship and everyone thinks it's easy, it's inherently harmful because it prevents the markets from diversifying. You need to understand, Madam Speaker, businesses isn't the end all be all. This is the battle cry from all of us. And even if it were, there's still better on our side. And then all that was a discussion. Because failure is likely, and we protect the people on the ground better. It's a clear way to resolve it.
Thanks to the debate, please come.
Sorry.